Welcome, lovely one, to the Meant for More podcast. My name's Lisa Clifford, and I am building the world's most empowering Meant for More movement, leading millions of heart-led purpose seekers from feeling insignificant to invincible. So I truly hope you enjoy this next episode. Hello, my lovely. To all my lovely listeners, we're here with Claire Morley-Jones, the MD, Chief People Person at HR 180. Given her a new title. And Lisa Clifford and Lexi the dog, who will not be left out.
No, she was determined to join us.
We're very warmed up because we've just had a cup of tea for an hour and a half and put the world to rights. So maybe we should have had record on then.
Yes. No, we wouldn't have to do it.
That would have been very entertaining. So,
I'm not sure everybody would have wanted to join in that conversation.
So this podcast is titled Meant for More, and it's about the Meant for More movement, helping empower millions of people to live the life they feel they were meant for. And I want to open up with that question for you, that vast big question. When did you have an experience where you knew you were meant for more and it changed your life?
I was meant for more and it's changed my life. I don't know. Is that really what I'm giving? You're like, why are you on this podcast if you don't know? I think there were lots of things that led up to it. I'm not sure I ever had that massive epiphany of like, I'm meant for more. I don't know. But I think there were lots of little steps that led up to it all the way through my life that then ultimately culminated in me going, I don't have to do this anymore. I can do that. Does that make sense? So I'm not sure that there was a one moment where lightning struck and I went, oh. I think it was lots of things, as I said. So I had an amazing friend who I was talking to about starting a business. And she was like, just do it. You can do it. And when we talked about the things, those little steps, they made sense. People, even though I had no power I didn't have a job title maybe, or people would still come to me and say, what should we do?
What were you doing? So take us back to what your job was and where you were at and when it was at.
Okay. So I had been at that point with O2 for a little while, about 18 months I think, and the project that I was working on was literally just coming to an end. But I had, prior to that, I'd been in various law firms. I've always been in HR, but I'd worked for Shoesmith and Eversheds. I'd had a stint working with St John's Ambulance with a charity fundraiser as well. And it didn't matter what job even at school. So I was a prefect at school. Yeah.
Surprise.
What a surprise. Librarian. I'd always taken on lots of positions of responsibility, and people trusted me to do that. And then the kids now have something called pupil voice, where there's a student that's responsible for filtering information from all the students up to the school in ideas and suggestions. And that's how I was then. I mean, we didn't call it that, but people would come and moan at me, essentially. And I'd have to find a way of taking that information and giving it to somebody who actually could make a difference or make the changes that people were wanting. And so, yes, I always had positions of responsibility, always had people who looked to me to help them. I always have wanted to help. And I think that also gave me the impetus to start HR 180, because I wanted to be able to support more people than I was able to in my corporate job. And so it's these little things. It's people trusting me. It's people looking to me for answers. It's being unflappable. I'm not one for big drama. I also have a really high tolerance for pressure. Quite like pressure. It helps me to achieve. And so all of those things lead to you then thinking, well, actually, I think I probably could run my own business if I'm good at this. And I've always got lots of ideas. I mean, obviously running a business isn't only about ideas, and there's lots of ideas I've had that you don't do anything with because there's not enough time, or actually they're not going to add any value to anyone. But I think all those things culminated in sitting down for a meal with a really good friend of mine and her saying, you can do this, and me thinking, well, actually, yeah, I probably can. And then that's when I started HL180 and I was 28. Oh, that's a long time ago now, people. A couple of years. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I've been friends for so long.
Yes, and why my children are going to be 11 next week.
Unbelievable. And what can you do now with your own business that's a big part of who you are that you couldn't have done when you were employed?
What I want.
Yeah.
What I want. I don't wish to speak ill of former employers, but at the end of the day, you are governed by what the business actually wants, and limited actually by sometimes what the business wants, or what it's commercially available, and the opportunities that you have to actually achieve it are limited. Whereas in running my own business, one of the very first things, people were paying me for my expertise, so they listened and implemented and did, and then the business grew, and they asked us whether we could develop services that would meet that requirement, which we've done, and that's helped us to grow. So we've been able to take on so for example, we started as a consultancy, so I just went in and told people what they needed to do and helped to implement it initially, but not to properly necessarily bed it in or maintain it for the long term. And clients said to us, well, how do we keep this going for the long term? And that's how the outsourced HR side of our business, the full service agency, came about, rather than just being a consultancy. And so, yeah, you're limited a bit by the culture, you're limited a bit by what the executive team actually want to achieve.
Sorry to interrupt you a little bit there, but I just love that your business, the products and services that you offer in your business have been the demands of your clients that have needed it, rather than you starting off with, right, what have I got to sell and who can I sell it to? It's been more... you've created and crafted the business around clients' requests and needs and desires, and now it's become tried and tested, and now it's your business. Yeah,
I mean, the whole payroll team definitely is. We would never have done payroll. I had never done payroll ever in my entire career. I've been responsible for payroll team, but I'd managed to avoid payroll my whole career. And then we had a client who was really unhappy. I shan't mention who they were unhappy with, but deeply unhappy with a very big provider, and said, we trust you. We know that it will be really good if everything will be right every month, whereas at the moment everything's wrong. Can you put together a payroll team? And Isabel, who is, despite the trauma of putting a payroll team together, is still with me today, and coming up for 15 years service in a few days' time. She put together and built and researched all the software and implemented all the software that meant that we could run a payroll team within 3 months for this particular client, and then payroll services obviously have kind of grown from there, and we've still got clients that use it.
I think the key though is in something that you just said, which is clients trusted you, even though you weren't known for payroll. You had to find a way of doing it, learn it, bed it in, test and measure it all on them, but they'd rather have had you making mistakes on them than their current provider making mistakes on them. And I think that's when I think about, so Alexis, settle down now. I've been holding my breath seeing you in black and white dog hair all over. So for those of you that don't know me, I have a white golden retriever, and Claire is here in a beautiful black jumpsuit that will soon no longer resemble black by the time she leaves, and my golden retriever could not possibly be in the room whilst Claire says she loves Claire. So just what I know and love about you is your huge personality. Claire was holding her breath for a moment there.
I was wondering what was coming out
what
there.
secret is coming out of that box. But your huge personality, and in all my years that I've known you, and we were working this out earlier, well, you said it's 18, well, I believe you. I've got a menopausal brain at the moment, so if you say my name's Fred and we've known each other 18 years, then 18 years is 2006.
There must be something like that. Yeah, 17, 18, yeah. Definitely.
And that whole time, you are somebody that I could say, help, and you would get in your car or make me get in mine and be there. We have done things from...
Vice versa.
When I never had a website 18 years ago.
I know.
We went to, when you were working out of your back bedroom, your amazing empire that you've got now that you would never call an empire, but that you've got this gorgeous suite of offices that are absolutely stunning, that they're luxurious, a happy team. But back in the day, you started the way a lot of businesses start, but don't know if they'll be able to make it. So I think your story is so inspiring, in your back bedroom. But I remember being in your back bedroom and me saying, oh, I've been working with some a PR agent, and the journalist wants to see my website, but I haven't got one, but I actually don't need one because I've got loads of business. So you sat with me and wrote it. You created it and wrote it in an evening. Another time, I needed, back in the day, in 2008, I was going to be doing the rebar. I trained to be a firewalking and empowerment instructor, and one of the things I didn't do with people is do a rebar bend, reinforcement bars that strengthen concrete. But I needed to practice the demonstration of it.
Oh.
And
oh my God. You literally just turned up.
You turned up in your work clothes.
Yeah.
And we were in my kitchen practicing it until you've said, no, is it okay if we stop now after about 2 hours? Yeah. Oh, the list is endless.
How amazing. I'll never forget the first session that I did with you, where you did the arrow break and the rebar and a firewalk, and I was just supporting you just for the day as a somebody that could be there, and it was just absolutely
I think that
amazing.
was with was that when we went to a hotel?
It was a hotel, yes, it
that
was.
That was with Pork Farms, and Deborah Bolton, who's an amazing friend of mine now, and a trained firewalking instructor.
Right.
Still, but yeah.
It was absolutely phenomenal. The power in that room, and the people that cried because they were felt released from something. And just had, but then they were released initially. It was really weird. They were released initially. People were nervous to start with. Then they worked through, obviously, and they did the arrow break and felt like they'd been released for something, and then completely empowered through the power walk, through the firewalk, and leaving at the end of the session buoyed and. I cannot describe the energy after that. And obviously I've done lots of it since then, haven't I? Yeah. But that very first one, it will always stay with me for the energy that was in that room, and the power of those individuals to...
When they see their own potential.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
That's what the tears come from as well, is, oh my goodness, I've done that, can I really do it?
Yeah.
But you're also taking me back to the time that we went to a client of yours that completely trusted you, because this is where I'm getting to with the fact that I trust you, but you show with your personality, your warmth, your expertise, and your willingness to say, right, I'm in. What am I in? But I'm in. But you took me, and we did some work with a company that you were working with.
I know which story you're going to go with.
And
is this where they signed the waiver?
Yeah. So I got everybody to sign the waiver, because of course I've got to sign a waiver, because it is dangerous, highly possible, and very empowering activity, but it is also dangerous, which makes people think, oh, I'm going to pay attention, I'm really going to give this everything I've got.
Yeah.
And this was when breaking arrows with your throat and bending rebars and firewalking was not widely out there.
Very new.
And it was really brave for anybody to take it into a company. And you took me into this company. I said, right, before we do anything, we're going to break an arrow with our throat. But I'd like you to sign this disclaimer first. Everybody signed the disclaimers that were very good because they trusted Claire and therefore trusted me. And signed the disclaimers, and I came to demonstrate it, and one gorgeous young lady said, oh, thank God for that, it's on your throat. I thought you put it in your mouth and down your throat and snapped it. And I said, oh my, I will never forget this for the rest of my life. You still signed the disclaimer, thinking that was the method.
Yeah.
But the point of that story and everything else I've said is about the trust that people can trust themselves to have in you and your team and how you show up for them. And I think that's
nice. I'm gonna cry.
Do it. I think that's why somebody would say to you, I know you don't do payroll, but can you? And I'm also, in between the lines, happy for you to make mistakes on us, but I'm not happy for another company to make mistakes. And I think, whilst I bet you didn't make any mistakes, and none that.
I think the first one went swimmingly. I think the second one there was a mistake, and we were all distraught.
Yeah.
And from that, Isabel created, and then others have done since then, a payroll Bible. So we have like a Bible that explains exactly. But that one mistake almost killed us in terms of being really upset that we let the client down.
But they were fully aware that there would be.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, they were really happy. It was only one mistake. We were beside ourselves.
Yeah, and you're a perfectionist.
Yes.
Which actually, doing the work that you do, your clients will be very relieved about.
Well, you'd hope.
Yes,
Yeah.
that you're the one that's awake at night on their behalf
of
making sure that everything's done right.
Yeah.
So I imagine that because Meant for More is about people that know that what they're doing, that they can actually achieve more. It's not necessarily more volume, but go for the things that scare them but they would love and desire. And I bet that when you were employed, the part that you maybe had to minimise was the you part.
Massively.
And the you part is massive. It's also your unique selling point, and your company is your personality and your values.
Someone in the team found a picture of a corporate me. And I mean, obviously it's a really long time ago now. I started HR180 in 2006. But because I was so young, but I had positions of responsibility, I needed to look older. And they were like, oh my goodness, I was in a suit. I mean, I don't remember the last time I wore a suit. And I did look much older, and they were like, you look older here when you were 15 years younger than you do now. Thank you very much. I was very pleased with that.
There is that thing though, isn't there, of feeling like you have to convince people that you're more mature than you look.
Oh, people told me that. People were like, you're too young to run a business. I had one person tell me that in one of my very first networking events, that there was absolutely no point me setting up. I would be setting up in competition to him, and I might as well just join him as an associate because he already had Yorkshire Market wrapped up, and I didn't stand a chance. Wow. I've got to thank that man because
where's he now?
Oh no, he's still in business.
Right. Okay. And you didn't run him over?
I didn't. No.
No.
It took a lot of self-control. I was in shock. I have to say, I was really in shock. But at the same time, I mean, thank you. I walked out of that room going, I'll prove you wrong.
Did you?
Yes.
Is that what motivates you? Somebody underestimating you, and then you think, challenge accepted.
Yes. And then, yes, it does. One of my school reports once, it said, Claire is always very confident, sometimes bordering on arrogance. Which my parents obviously didn't take too well to, but I think there's a level of that, and I'm not saying I don't have moments, of course I do, where you're worried about that push through, and can I, and do I, will I, of course you have those moments, but at the same time, yes, I do like to show that I am capable of being able. I don't like being told I can't do something. I think actually I don't like being told no, and so therefore I'm going to do it.
You rise.
Yes, yes, yeah. I do, and yet I say I'm not a competitive person.
Well, you
it depends.
You definitely want to be on your team. That's for sure. That's for sure, because you're always finding. What I know about you, you're always finding a solution. You're always looking at improving. You're always looking at bringing people on board, and you're brilliant at knowing your flaws. Well, you're looking at me in a shock.
Yeah,
I haven't personally seen any myself. I know you've got one in the kitchen and the bathroom. I've seen those. But you're good because you recruit around them, don't you? You know you're a brilliant starter and you get things going. But you have brilliant people that love doing the work, and you recruit to people's what they love doing and give them the job that they like. If they're a middler or a finisher or love the detail or love the creation. I love that about the way that you run your business, is you put people in their expertise and their motivation and their growth rather than just their skill. So what
I think I mean, as you said, I'm a really good starter. I get about 2/3 of the way through and then I am beyond board, I have to say. And it depends what it is. Obviously, if it's a piece of client work, you crack on and you get it finished. Normally something interesting will happen at that point. If it's casework, for example, so like legals might get involved. But if it's an internal project, then Ange is literally the most amazing person. Her skill set is to take everything that I want and I envisage in my head and then make it reality. Jane, who left us earlier in the year, we recruited her specifically because we are all in the team very people, but we're not massively ticking, we've done this and driving a project forward with every single step that needs to happen. Whereas Jane, coming from a completely different background to the rest of us, was awesome at that, and so drove some amazing projects both for clients but also for HR180 forward. Sam is great at being super competitive and wanting to win new business all the time, but then also holding people to account. Like, I'm really very hands-on or I'm very hands-off. I don't seem to be able to find a great middle ground. I'm either all in, you ask for my opinion and you know you're going to absolutely get it, and there's going to be red pen everywhere, or you're like, no, I can handle this, and I'm more than happy to be either. I just can't kind of sit in that middle bit. Whereas Sam's really good at being in that middle bit. So we have a good skill set and there's a good number of people around us, and we build roles around people and where they want to move. You can't do that for absolutely everybody, obviously, but I mean, where we can we do, and we're that flexible in everything. It's not just in what people want to be doing for their careers, it's also in their hours and what their priorities are for them, either at home or outside activities as well. So we do try to stay really flexible to keep the team together, and we've got a really amazing, really amazing, consistent, great team. We've got an average service level of 7 years. We've got Ange on coming up for 13 years. So Isabel's on 15. We've got Ange and Laura on 13. Miranda 5. Sam 3. So we've got.
And what sort of companies do you work with? What sort of size or what sort of need do they have, so that people can imagine it? What this amazing team does for you. For them.
So it's any sized business really, but one where they want us to be both strategic and tactical. So it is about having it's not just, I guess I should say, do it the other way around. It's not just about delivering administration. It's not just about delivering advice and you ringing us and saying you have a problem. It is about us meeting with you every quarter, looking at what's changing in the business. Is it a merger or an acquisition? Is it growth? Is it you need 5 more developers because you just want a big contract? Looking at what are the things that you need, having a people plan from the very outset of building a relationship and a partnership between our organisations, and then implementing that people plan. So that might be engagement, it might be, and proper engagement, not just a survey. I mean, like actually engaging with everybody. It might be having a wellness and content plan. It might be you need a lot of recruitment, and what does that look like, and building your employer branding. So what are we going to deliver strategically in bigger projects, meatier projects, that are going to add value to your people and are not necessarily transactional, but alongside the transactional stuff. So making sure that an offer letter goes out, and that somebody's maternity is dealt with, and that we keep in contact with that person while they're on maternity, and make sure that if they want to use keeping in touch days, they can. And then also obviously grievances might pop up, or disciplinaries, or managers just uncertain about how to handle somebody who's got long-term sickness, for example. And so we're there, we're actually holding and delivering the meetings. So clients is anybody that genuinely just cares about their people and wants them to have the best experience of work, and in order to get the most, obviously, out of that individual.
So I know we were talking earlier that it starts with you understanding their business and their business plan, and not just the plan but their mission and vision, because you're creating or supporting them creating this beautiful, courageous machine that's going to get them there, and keeping it maintained so that the wheels don't fall off. They're not constantly replacing staff that are tired, unhappy, or missing something. That you get the long service, you get the people that are being supported, they're getting the growth opportunities, that people are on board with where they're going, with the business is going. So it really is partnership.
Yes.
You know, and
we are part of their business. Like everything we do is bespoke to that client. They're down to their letterhead, their wording. So some clients it's still very formal. So we still have some legal clients, for example. So then it does talk about the company, the employee. We expect you to be at such and such. You know, it's a bit more formal language. And then, but we also conversely work with a social media company or a PR company, for example, where it's like, yay, congratulations, you got a job. You know, we're really delighted to have you in the team. And so every single thing that leaves our building is as we are as invested in every single client as we are invested in ourselves. And we want to sound and feel exactly like that client at that moment in time. So it's for the HR business partners and the HR professionals in HR and AD, very different to an internal job. And so there's obviously a period of training and adjustment and getting used to it, and having to remember that everybody's got slightly different ways of doing things. And
so I'm guessing to an employee that's working for a company that has outsourced their HR to you, when they speak to you or Sam or Laura or invisible Isabel, love that, that they feel like they're talking to their own HR person. It's not like, all right, well it is connected, and it's with that company's tone of voice, with that company's culture, with that company's vision in mind, as though you are in the office of that company.
With that
is
individual.
that different to other HR companies? I know you can't speak for all of them.
I would imagine so, because we are both strategic. Lots of HR companies are either advice lines, and all they do is, you know, the manager rings, I've got an issue, and they respond to it. Or they are tactical and operational. So again, we'll put in a policy document. You know, we might do some training maybe on for managers or something like that. But mainly reactionary. There is something happening. You ring me, and I will help you to solve it. Whether that's just I'll provide you with advice, or I'll be a spare pair of hands. Whereas we are an actual function. You know, you have your HR business partner that is regularly meeting with either the board or the senior executive team to look at, as I said, what is the strategy for the next quarter, where are we going, what have we got time to be able to deliver. You have an HR advisor who is doing all of the operational side of it and the things that people do now. But yeah, the employees actually ring. It's not just managers. As soon as we onboard a new client, we have already been on site. That's part of our new partnership process. Going on site tells us a lot about this company and how we can support them. Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess it's so important because they won't know what you see with fresh eyes that would be helpful for them, for you to support them even more closely.
Yes.
Without being imposing.
Yes, absolutely, without being imposing, but it is quite fascinating. I remember a client, we went on site, we walked into the building, we were huddled in this little reception area initially, the paint was falling off the walls, it was filled to the rafters with old newspapers and magazines kind of stacked around everybody, we weren't offered a drink, we walked through, we went up some old rickety stairs, where there was you couldn't get up the stairs for stuff. There was stuff just absolutely everywhere. We were taken into a boardroom again where the whole table was littered and covered. We weren't offered a single drink. We weren't told anything despite asking. We weren't really told much about the organisation, and that the organisation swore to us that they genuinely cared about their people. And yet the experience that we had clearly told us, you know, especially if you're going for an interview, that is not the impression that you would have got. And so you learn a lot from going on site. And I think people do that less now.
We've got so many blind spots in our own business because we're so busy. We're trying to do our best. We're trying to do as much as possible. We're grateful to have our jobs, and I think since COVID, a lot more has been accepted being done remotely, and the value of going on site will benefit them beyond. I mean, sometimes it's beyond the transactional stuff that you can do, the planning stuff or the insightful stuff. It can be that person may not feel that they could turn to somebody else and say, it's tough, or I feel like this strategy that I've got ahead is a big mountain to climb, and then spending half an hour with you or one of the team, they can feel like actually anything's possible, and I really feel heard, and that you can understand their point of view because you've been in their space, you've been in their place, and you've been in their business. So I think it can move people along much faster than cracking on and doing more work remotely. Do you find that sometimes you might get people that say, oh, I'm too busy to have a meeting, and then you turn up and they have one thing, oh God, I didn't know I needed that. You must get that.
We're a bit like a confessional. You know, like I'm going to confess all to my priest kind of thing. And I also think that as particularly HR&80 people have talked to me, written on them, that doesn't come across on the screen, but it does in person. I mean, we have the most amazing clients. They do meet with us. We do say from the very outset, from the very first meeting, we're not remote, we're not hands off, we're not just going to take your money and you know,
hope you forget,
pretty
like
much.
A gym.
I was wondering the best way of being able to say that, but yes, basically, you know, we're going to be proactive. We're here to drive something forward for you. You know, whatever it is that your objectives are, we're going to drive it.
We're going to be proactive.
We're going to be very proactive. We're not just kind of pootling around in the background and you have no idea what we do. So our clients are really good at that. But initially, that's quite difficult to build. People are more resistant. And more people are ringing us now than would have done before COVID, saying, I just want a price. And they're not normally our clients, to be fair. You know,
because when you're working with you guys, it's like you're getting your heart, your soul, your expertise, your wisdom, and so those that do just want a price, Yeah, I can understand.
We won't win on that basis, because
No.
that's not what we're about.
No.
We won't win that business, so it's not worth that person's time, investing their time and telling us what they would like from an HR, because they're more than likely going to just want transactional or administrative, and that's how they see the HR function.
Yeah.
But also going back to the being on site, it is great for the client, because everybody contributes collaboratively to how HL180 functions and what our own strategies are. And that means that everybody understands how the business works and what the balance is sometimes between something being commercial, great, we're going to bring some money in, but also being principled. And principled wins out every time. But they have to understand that in order to be able to obviously talk to a business owner or a board, and convince them that they do genuinely know what it means to be and to run a company, and to have all those different, conflicting at times priorities and needs. But whilst we're on site, we also get the opportunity to see all the employees. Which you wouldn't do remotely if you just literally had
and then that builds up more trust.
Of course it does, and we know every employee, so when an employee wants to talk to us, or does ask for a Teams meeting, it's not kind of like an awkward.
Well, the thing is, sorry to interrupt you yet again, but quite often HR is referred to fondly and humorously as the police, or you're in trouble, but when your team goes in and you go around and you're saying hello, I can imagine that people would, if they had a question or before something became a problem, feel they could run it by you. You can give them great advice or some wisdom or a question for them to think about. You're so much more approachable because they've seen you on site rather than somebody that's on the end of the telephone. Because I think people have a fear of using the phone. There are so many people that have fear of using the phone, never mind ringing somebody that works on behalf of the company. So I'm imagining that so many things get squished before they become a problem because you're accessible, and that can only happen if you've been seen. And also I'm guessing that in those conversations that happen on site, things are more easily shared that perhaps wouldn't be an agenda point for on the screen. There is a difference, isn't there?
There is,
from having conversations with somebody on screen to meeting them in person.
But also just overhearing something. You're on site and there's cake in the kitchen. You're like, oh, why is there cake? And they're like, oh, it's so-and-so's daughter's just been born or something, and they brought, and you're like, oh, and you go and say, hi, congratulations, I hear you've had a daughter, what do they weigh? So you'd never get that on Teams, would you? You'd have absolutely no clue. And so then you learn, just passively learn so much about the organisation, about the people who are in it, what they need, what they want, what they need, what's meaningful to them. Like, how do you engage? How do you design an engagement strategy for lots of different businesses and lots of different industries and sectors when you don't actually understand? And as I said before, an engagement strategy is not just a survey. Unless you actually understand those people and what's important to them. Like, are they all developers constantly being called 4 times a week by other recruiters offering them 15 grand more to go and work down the road? And then how do you engage somebody like that? And why would they stay if money is important to them and that's what motivates them? You don't get that in just doing everything over Teams. You do need to see the people. So our clients do benefit from that, because we feel, obviously we're not there all the time, we can't be, we wouldn't be cost effective otherwise for the client. They have their own team. Exactly. But there's a really good balance to be had. And I think everybody slightly lost that balance maybe a bit after COVID, when things were done. Everybody expected everything to be done remotely, but we very quickly went back to, okay, life's not quite normal in 2021, for example, not quite normal, but as much as we can get out, we will, and then slowly over time, obviously, it's become more normal. And now it seems, 4 years, 5 years.
I know, it's unbelievable, but I think so many people want to work from home, and yet they don't. And so what some of the people I've spoken to, friends even, they want to work from home because they want the independence and the freedom, but they don't like that they are disconnected which has to go with it, that they are missing out on the team spirit stuff. They're misunderstanding each other sometimes, they're misinterpreting each other, they're misreading an email. I mean, my emails are terrible.
Well,
So my wonderful
text messages are
terrible. My wonderful web developer sent me a message saying, "Oh, I've not been in touch with a while, Lisa, and it's probably my fault." And he told me something personal at the beginning about himself, and then went on to some of the things he was doing for me. And I just replied bluntly to the key things he wrote, and then I had to send another email saying, "By the way, I hope you're well." So. But yeah, I thought when I read it, I thought, oh God, I love him. And then, but he would never know that by my message. And if he was to read too much into it, he'd think, oh, do you know what? She doesn't care about me.
Yeah.
And so we can really easily misinterpret things because we're not seeing the whites of somebody's eyes, and we were saying earlier, when we were chatting, weren't we, about the value of what's like osmosis learning?
Yeah.
Is that if I use the right word?
Osmosis, yeah, right. It just kind of sinks in passively.
Yeah. We were just saying about, how when I was employed, and now I'm completely unemployable, free spirit, I learned so much by watching and listening to how other people did things that I didn't have to ask, can you show me? Because I watched, learned, modelled it.
Yeah.
And when you're working remotely at home, you don't get that opportunity to absorb other people's energy, to bounce ideas off people. You are completely by yourself, working stuff out for yourself. And I know so many people that have got themselves into a stew, in more ways than one, over thinking they should know something, so didn't want to ask. They don't want to burden their boss. The boss is already busy, but they think, if I say I don't know this, then I shouldn't have the job I've got. My job will become under threat, and then it's taken them into becoming more and more and more reclusive, and also hindered their mental well-being, because then it's turned internal on them. And there's so much of that going on for people that will never put their hand up and say, yes, that's me. And yet then they start looking for new jobs, because they want to get out of the funk that they're in, and so they think, I need to go somewhere else, instead of readdressing it. I don't know whether you've experienced any of that.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a really difficult balance. We have had there's a lot in the news, particularly in America, but here as well, return to work mandates, as the Americans would call them. And I had an experience last week where I was talking to somebody who had to be in the office 3 days a week minimum. But when they're in the office, they don't have the right equipment around them. They haven't got the right licenses. Their boss didn't talk to them for the whole week, apart from the very first day. It was their first day, and spoke to them on the first day, but didn't talk to them for the rest of the week. Why would you go into that office environment? You would be like, well, I'll just work from home.
Yeah.
So I think whilst I get that the people want flexibility and maybe think that they're happier at home, I think at the same time, the office has to offer something that is now quite different and unique to literally just turning up and being present for 8 hours a day. It has to do better, has to do more than that.
It's Nikki Pattinson who she consults to retail and helps people, helps businesses grow. She just says, I can completely understand, having gone into some shops, why people are buying online. Because they're not being served. People are not buying, they're not being sold to, they're not being helped and served. And I think as a leader, I saw a brilliant little snippet, and I put it on LinkedIn, about leadership being about, you need to meet up with every one of your reports once a week. And if somebody says, well, I don't have time for that, then he said, you don't have time to be a leader. Or you have too many reports. But if you're not meeting up with your people and removing the blocks, inspiring them, listening to them, making them feel heard, seen, valued, appreciated, recognised, you're not leading.
No. We had a new client join us about 4 monts ago now. They had 19 direct reports.
Oh.
Yeah.
And what would you say, since we're on the subject, what would you say is a sweet spot for number of reports?
I mean, it depends on the level,
I
doesn't
suppose
it?
it depends on how operational they are.
Yes,
as a,
it does.
As a
It very
leader.
much does depend on the level. If you were, I don't know, head of customer services, for example, then you'd probably have more. It depends on the size of the organisation as well. So if you're head of the customer services, but there's 4 customer services teams, then 4, because you only had a team leader of each of those.
Yeah.
So it does depend on the organisation. But this was a very, very senior person with 19 direct reports, and not physically possible.
What's the downside of that?
Nobody gets any time.
Yeah.
Nobody gets any time whatsoever, or
So
truly understands the mission, or feels
Yeah.
truly understood by that individual, by the manager, and they muddle along literally as best they can with little to no guidance, because they just see their manager, crumbling basically.
And that would be really tough for the more proactive, solution orientated leaders that report into that person, is that they're not getting time for their ideas to be heard, to implement them, so their ideas dry up. I think there's no point, because I'm not going to get heard. And if I get heard, then I'm not going to get allowed to go ahead with it, because it's going to mean more time with them. So it's a real limiter, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when that particular individual wants to sell in 5 years. Well, at the moment you don't have a saleable business, because it relies solely, all those 19 people rely solely on you. So yeah, it's quite fascinating, really. But this is why you can see an org chart, can't you? The client can send you an org chart, and you can sit there and go, all right, that's what it looks like. But when you actually go and see and meet everybody in practice, and they're like, wow, yeah.
Or even sit in a meeting, which I imagine would tell you 1,000 things that a plan won't tell you. Sitting in one meeting for 1 hour, you're probably seeing that. Who needs to speak less, who needs to speak more, who's been suppressed, all sorts of things, even like how organised the meeting is. You can probably see from one meeting where a company could do even better, or needs to do more of what they're doing.
Yeah. I have to say, that terrifies me. If somebody were to come into HRT say one of my meetings, but I'm really good at doing it to other people.
I could see you visualising that as I was speaking.
Like,
I could see
there would be so much room for improvement.
I had no idea whether it was the fact that you didn't want to sit in somebody else's meeting, but it turned out that the expression on your face was fear of somebody sitting in one of yours. It would be.
But you can't see what you can't see.
Yes.
Is that the expression? You think you're doing a great job, obviously, but you do rely, and I have to say, the HR180 team are very good at telling me when I'm going wrong, and particularly some of the long-standing members of the team who no longer go red when they talk to me anymore. But lots of people won't have a team that's confident in doing that, but also won't have the opportunity to have an outside point of view and somebody to go, do you know what, this might be something that you want to consider for next time, or how about we look at this, and how do we upskill the team so that they're capable of being able to make their own decisions. So lots of things all come out.
People don't know, because we have so many blind spots, don't we? Because we are so busy.
Yes, of course.
And then there was something I was going to say. You don't know what you don't know. What was the other thing I was going to say? That saying, that belief of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But not broken isn't a high performance.
No. It doesn't mean
mindset,
it's efficient, does it? It just means it's like it's limping along.
But so many people think, well, the meetings are all right, it's not broken, so let's not fix it. But actually, is it giving you all that you need to free you up to go and do what you need to do? And I think your fresh eyes coming in a you've got no agenda other than you want to give them massive value, and also them be an amazing success. So what one tip then, let's do this for leaders, what would MDs of companies particularly, what one tip would you give them that would help them sleep better at night? Other than a large glass glass of brandy.
Well, yes.
Or
some medication.
Or a Horlicks. Other than that, what do you think the key thing is first that it keeps most MDs awake at night? If there was one, and I haven't prepped you with this, I apologise.
No.
But if there was one common thing,
I think
is it staff?
No, I think it's growth. Obviously that comes through staff, doesn't it, really? But yeah, it will be about getting bigger and better and more efficient, and having shareholder value and all of those things. But you can't do any of those without your people, essentially. Yeah. But they'll be thinking, they won't necessarily be thinking about people. In fact, I think people will be at the very bottom of their list. Yeah. They'll be thinking about where can they get the next loan from, or that outstanding loan or mortgage for a building or capex expenditure for something, or they'll be bogged down by what they think are real operational issues and challenges, but behind all of that will be people, and I don't think that they would necessarily have thought that. But actually that is the most important thing. They don't have a business without those people. They can have all the equipment in the world, but if there's nobody to deliver it, no one to service it, nobody to train people how to use it, it's going to make no difference whatsoever.
So underpinning the thing that keeps them awake at night is if the teams were working at their optimum, processes were at their best, people were motivated, the right people were being recruited, the right people were being released so they could go and do the job they're meant to do in another company, people were being supported in their times of difficulty, would ultimately have a compound effect on the cash flow and on the revenue income and on the that would. But it is not taken, the compound effect is not seen, and it is always exactly what's in front of you right now. Firefighting. But not just firefighting, like it's much easier to look and say, oh well, we've just won 3 pieces of business and we now need, I don't know, a big piece of equipment or whatever. It's much easier to see that, isn't it? Rather than to see we need to engage our people and we need them to be at optimum performance. To really drill down to the root cause and not to have any blame, but to have more, how do we enhance what we've got rather than, because it might not need fixing, it just needs enhancing, doesn't it? And I think there's, unfortunately, what we're seeing in the market at the moment when we're networking and talking to people is that there is a real concern over what is happening in the economy, what is the employment legislation going to be like, what is tax and VAT implications and those kinds of things, what's going to be coming up. So it seems like it's a very uncertain future, which means that people are putting off decision making. And then that's also having an impact on their people because they're not seeing a future plan as everyone's like, I don't know what to do. We've got a client that at the moment, their board, not them specifically, but their board has put a multi-million-pound project on hold to kind of see what's going to happen. But then that means the whole company is thinking, well, does that mean we're in trouble? Should we be worried? Should we be looking for jobs somewhere else? So it has such a massive impact. So I think there's a little bit of uncertainty, and that would be keeping people awake at the minute. And salaries. Do people leave? Does staff leave when they feel uncertain? Uncertain is I feel like it's such a horrible space to be in, as uncertainty, isn't it? Yes. I think in my experience, and this is only my experience, so it could be very different elsewhere, you're really good, strong people who have initiative and take on responsibility, have autonomy. They, but through uncertainty, start to think to themselves, they can see what might happen, don't want to take that risk, and they look. And some of the people that are just happy to take instructions, and we need all types of people in a business, absolutely, but your high performance individuals
are going to be quite concerned by levels of anxiety and yes, potentially look elsewhere. And then, for other people, it will take a long time before that filters down, but they're not necessarily your high performance people. It does depend, because sometimes you have really high performing people who do see it but also are incredibly loyal.
Yes.
So would give you the benefit of the doubt for a period of time. So it does depend on the culture of the business and the levels of communication in the business before people decide what they want to do with their
And there's
own
a difference
personal life.
between being open and transparent, isn't there?
Yes.
Your teams don't need you to be transparent, but they probably need a degree of openness.
Yeah.
I do want to ask this last question, which is, in your experience in today's market, are great employees being headhunted? So I know it always happens, but now more than ever, is there an appetite in the market that great people are being hunted?
Yeah.
And so there's a real demand on how you retain your great people, even if, as you said earlier, somebody's offering them 15 grand more.
Yeah. I think there's more fluidity in the market definitely at the minute for candidates that we haven't been seeing. And so there's more movement and more candidates available. They just weren't. Everybody was holding still. Everybody was worried about maybe being made redundant, and if they join a new company, obviously having no benefits at all, and if so they've not been, people have not been moving around as much, and that's increasing. In terms of, I've totally forgotten the question.
Well, I think I asked it in quite a woolly way, but it's our
great headhunters.
Great candidates few and far between now, and also in high demand, not just because of scarcity, but because the needs are there. I think that there are awesome candidates everywhere. But what is not happening is that businesses still, and this is one of my bugbears after 18 years of saying, come on now, people, sort it out. Businesses are still not saying, this is who we are, this is what and are not building a proper employer brand. So you've got the big guys, yes, but then you've also got the dichotomy of, well, they have a brand, but is that actually how it is on the ground? And smaller organisations are not building that. They're not building their employer brand and matching that, and that being the experience of candidates coming in. And so then they're not necessarily attracting the talented people that are out there. They're not finding them. They're not interviewing them in the right way. They are not having candidates who self-select. So they might be having thousands of applications, but fairly average people that actually don't have either the skill set or don't have the initiative or proactiveness that they would be looking for, or they're having none. Because of the way that they're setting out their advertising and the way that they are trying to, just talking to an agent, for example, but that agent isn't selling them the best way. Well, has the agent actually been in and seen the site? Have you told them who you are and what you're looking for? Is there a candidate pack? How are you actually selling yourself to the candidates? And then there is a wealth of good candidates out there, but they are also, candidates are just scattergunning still. It's 100 applications. The CV isn't bespoke. The letter isn't bespoke. Most of the time, there isn't even those things anymore. It's literally just upload what you've already got in LinkedIn or Reed or one of those kind of like a job portal. And it's not, the candidates are not necessarily thinking, what do I want? Who do I want to work for? What kind of work do I want to be involved with? And then only approaching those companies. So it's kind of from both sides. Everybody's take all the different multicoloured beads out there and pull them through a funnel and see what pops out the other end, rather than going, I only want red ones. Is that something that you do at HR 180, is help somebody with their recruitment strategy? So they're recruiting exactly the right profile, exactly the right attitude, the right skill set for that culture and for that job.
Yes, absolutely. And still, people are traditional interviewing, i.e. look at a CV, tell me about what you've done.
Well, it's a little bit like being in a police station, allegedly, never been in one, where somebody's looking for the, prove to me that you are this in your CV, or it's very, I wrote an amazing, I've done it a few times for companies, but recruitment process and way of recruiting people that is absolutely congruent with the way, the culture, the outcomes that the business wants, and the teams that are already in place. Oh, it was amazing. Oh, but it's, you have to change how you're currently doing it in order to get and attract the people that want to work in you. So the recruitment process has to be a gluing process, I think, where it's not just, you know, me as the employer, I get to decide who I'm having. It's actually, I need to show them who we are so they know what they're getting into. So we attract the people that want to get into this, and also that we sell ourselves in such a way that they want to get in with us as well. So it's a big thing.
There's two things. The that stickiness, the candidate has to want, more candidates now than ever want to work with a company that has a specific set of values and a specific way of doing business. And not every company has values, or has values that are embedded. There's a very big difference still between, we've got three words on the website, 4 words on the website, but they're not expanded anywhere, they're literally just words. But then they're also not embedded, and that culture is not being explained anywhere. So that's the first thing. You can't be sticky to those candidates if you haven't got those things and explaining what they are. And then also embedding, having the recruitment is great, but it's no good if that then isn't linked to everything else in the organisation. So if you're recruiting a certain set of people on the basis of their behaviours, rather than just literally skills, because we can teach them skills, we want to know about them and their personality and whether they're going to accept feedback really well, whether they're going to be proactive and positive people in adversity. Those kinds of things are the things we actually want to get to the bottom of. There's no point recruiting those people into your organisation going, yay, and nothing. You know, they need to be onboarded, they need to understand exactly what their responsibilities are, they need training, they need to understand what the different parts of the organisation do. It's not just this is Gary from accounts and that's Janet.
There's your seat.
And there's your seat, pretty
there's
much.
And
you've got no equipment because we forgot to order it. How are people being promoted? Is that also linked to those same things, to your culture, to your values, to the behaviours that you want demonstrated? Are your leaders, are you holding them to account? Because actually sometimes it's too difficult to hold your leaders to account, and so you don't. But then if your leaders can't even live your values, then why on earth would anyone else bother?
And then it becomes a point of resentment as well. Unenforced and unlived values that end up being a marketing exercise that looks good to customers. And like you say, words on a wall don't say anything. A word on the wall is open to massive interpretation. It has to have a statement in it of who you're being when you're honouring that value, what it looks like, so that we can. You're so right, darling.
It's been fun.
It has been.
This one's gone really quick.
I hope I've pressed record. Is all I can say right now.
So do I.
Thank you so much, Claire Morley-Jones of HR180.co.uk, which will be in the description portion of this podcast and video. And I think we need to get you back on for Meant for More values.
Ooh,
yes, because I think that companies can often be meant for more if they put their values in place. That helps their team be part of something, proud to be part of something, operate and behave in a certain way that they're proud to, that enhances productivity, team spirit, solutions. Oh,
yeah.
Well, I think that's it done. We've just done it.
We've just done it.
The men for more values.
Let's
do
I can
that.
add a lot more to that actually, in terms of rituals, for example. How are your values lived out in the rituals of your organisation?
Right, we're going to book a date in the diary. Stand by, Claire Morley-Jones Part 2 of 10.
Wow, that's a big commitment.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you would like to be involved in the Meant for More movement, then please drop me a line at lisa@lisaclifford.co.uk. Whether that's you're interested in being on the podcast, taking part in any of the trainings, or would just love to know how you can help empower others, then let's have a conversation. Thank you for listening, and we'll connect again very soon.